Three, two, one. Welcome back to another episode of Topic 4. Things I wish I knew when I started AT Talks. We're here with Leah and Ed. Anybody want to go for? Actually, if you could quickly introduce yourself, say like what state you're in and what you like to do, and then we'll go into the topic.
I'll go first because I'm the only lady. So I'm Leah. This is my puppy Laura. So say hi. She likes to nibble because she's still a puppy. But hi. I am currently formally kind of in between, but I'm at Pacific Union College in California, and I just accepted a position with Vibrant Care in Sacramento. So yeah.
I'm Ed. I'm in Vermont, working at Castleton University, currently watching my lacrosse practice from the booth. It's about 18 degrees outside, so I want to milk this interview as long as possible so I don't have to go back out there anytime soon because my basketball season just ended and I like the cozy gym. So things that I like to do, spend as much time with my wife and son, dogs and cat as much as possible, and woodwork every once in a while. So that's me.
All right. So today's topic: things I wish I knew when I started. Who wants to go first? I have to tape an ankle, so I'm gonna leave this thing for like a few minutes. But I'm gonna mute myself. Get out of the. No, kids, stop it! I don't have permission for you to be on video. Okay, so and I'll unmute myself in like 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
You can start, Leah.
Yeah, so definitely the first thing coming out, and I think this is kind of across the board with most people, is learning how to say no. I think that's a huge one. Like understanding, and I'll take a different approach on saying no. Sometimes saying no, like as a respect for yourself. Like we all talk about burnout. We all talk about like feeling overwhelmed, overworked, underpaid, all of that just jazz, which is kind of consistent. But saying no because you respect yourself, not just because you don't want to do something. So that's one of my biggest things that I've learned more in the last 2 years in my position than I have in the 4.5 years I've been certified. So
yeah, that's actually a really interesting take. I've never heard it worded that way, as a respect for yourself. It's just getting my wheels kind of rolling. Like, why would I say yes to something I wouldn't ask someone else to do? Like that, when you just said that, that's what I was kind of thinking. Because I do think a lot of people say no, not the fact that they don't want to do it, but that's kind of like they have to set that boundary, but that's how it comes across. But I think the way you word it is the perfect way for someone who does say that and has to explain themselves can. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Like my thing is I'm the kind of person that I don't like to produce like poor quality stuff. I don't like to not give people my full attention. So if I only have 20 minutes to rehab somebody, and then they have practice, like I don't feel like I'm getting a connection if I also have to do treatment and rehab in that time. So tell them no, like don't bother coming in. Like I don't have the time to see you today. Like let's reschedule for tomorrow, or hey, like I can only do rehab or I can only do treatment. You can come back later to get the other one. And so
yeah, and it's so funny because as soon as you say let's reschedule, the athlete sometimes responds in a way where they feel kind of jaded. Like I'm not as important as either task A, B, or C, or athlete A, B, and C, and then you kind of lose that compliance with them, and then that just sets everything back. So
yeah, no, I can agree. I've had some difficulties with that. So I think learning how to say no, but saying it in an appropriate way. So like, for example, like telling someone like, hey, let's reschedule. It's not that, and telling them why I don't have the time, because I think there's a lot of chaos in insecurity. So, and like uncertainty. So like if someone doesn't know, they're going to immediately resort to like that negative idea. So like if I just tell them like don't come in or no, I don't have time, they're probably going to be more like, oh, she doesn't care about me. She doesn't like women's cross country. She thinks that I'm a waste of time. Like they're going to resort to like that kind of like negative self-talk rather than saying like when I tell them now, I'm like, hey, like I don't have time right now. I'm prepping for volleyball practice. I set aside these hours for you, and you missed your appointment. So it's also like accountability factor, like saying, hey, I need you to come in at 3. You said you could come in at 3 and it's now 3:45 and you want to come in. Like, so it's more so like that transparency and the accountability factor as well. So.
Mhm. So I've been trying to think all day what I want to talk about because I watched all the other videos and people talked about everything that I was about to touch on.
That's fine. Trust me. The only person that's watching all the videos besides you is me. So go ahead.
No.
I watched them.
Yeah.
I just cut off before the very end because yeah, like 2 seconds.
Yeah, but the one I was thinking of is um, the point was made about being wrong, and it's okay to be wrong. And to kind of piggyback on that, um, being able to admit that you're not sure was a big one. I know that was spoken about where it's kind of it opens you up to the athlete into a little bit of vulnerability so they feel greater connection, I think, where it's like, you don't know what's going on, I don't know what's going on, but we're going to figure it out together. And I think when you get into that relationship with the athlete where it's kind of like you're going into the unknown together, it kind of brings you a little bit closer. So I'm glad I started getting comfortable doing that. The other thing too, with my undergrad, I was a bookworm, and I felt like I had to have all the answers all the time. So I studied for every exam by myself, and I felt like I had to do everything by myself, problem solve by myself. And it wasn't until about my 4th year as a certified where I was just like, hey, I did this eval. I think it's this, but I'm not sure. I'm not getting a good feel with the Lockmans. Can you do it? And in all honesty, I've kind of incorporated that in where I tell an athlete, I'm pretty sure you tore your ACL, but your legs are kind of big. I got sausage fingers. My boss has much bigger hands. I'm going to let him tug just because, and I'm lucky enough to have a network where there's 5 of us right there. So we can bounce ideas off each other. And again, perfect example, one of my athletes just got an elbow injury. I haven't evaled an elbow in 8 years. And my boss is right there. He works baseball and he does elbows all day long. So I talked to my athlete and I was like, you know what? I could go through this whole long eval process and still not be confident. And so my boss was right there. I was like, hey, do you mind? He did the eval for me. And I mean, I probably would have jumped to the conclusion that he tore his UCL, and I think it was more just a wrist flexor strain. But so being able to kind of put what was my ego aside and all for the sake of making sure the athlete gets the best answer possible so we can come up with the best plan possible. So that's probably the biggest thing I've learned that I wish I knew my first 4 years.
So we had just saying no. Saying no is okay. Being wrong is okay. And do we have a round 2?
Yeah. One of the things that, and like this might also be just like situational based. So I went to school in Vermont. And then I came and moved back to California. I felt like I was prepared for working not in California. And like I didn't have athletic training connections in California. So like I think that's one thing I would like to see, obviously, is a better connection. You want to say something? But then I also like think that building connections, um, like mentorship and stuff like that. Because when I came to California, like I'm building programs where I go sometimes. Like we're told that there's no licensure or regulation in California, and like that's what we're told in college. But I never would have imagined experiencing people posing as athletic trainers. Like a girl my age, like I was the first year as at a high school. A girl my age comes to a game and comes into the training room to tape up a couple athletes, and I'm like, oh, like, hey, like, how's it going? Like, being formal, like how you're taught, like you always go and say hi to the athletic trainers, you say hi to the referees, like whatever and whatnot. So I'm like she just walks in my room and I'm like, hey, and she's like, hi, and then like just goes to taping her athletes, and I'm like trying to start conversation, and I asked her, I was like, oh, are you a certified athletic trainer? Like, where'd you go to school? That kind of thing. And like having someone that just like looked at me like I had 6 heads, I'm like, oh, okay. And then having people taking care of your athletes who aren't certified and like dealing with those things, I definitely wasn't prepared for. But that's also like just because of where I chose to go to school. But
Yeah, I think just going back, I feel like with schooling, it's all teach us how to do everything. I remember we did in our admin class, choose one state, find their practice acts, and that was it. We didn't really learn. I feel like the reasoning behind having practice acts wasn't stressed enough. So like it wasn't until I think 3 years ago I really started caring, because I think Vermont has a decent practice act, and I'm not really involved with the Vermont Association of Athletic Trainers, which I feel bad saying because I do want to get more involved. And hearing everything about California has kind of sparked that. So I think I mean, I'm generalizing, which isn't great, but I think a lot of younger athletic trainers just kind of expect the older generation of athletic trainers to take care of all the advocating and everything at the state, at the federal level, because it's just not really stressed enough in school, where it's like we have to be able to take control and show how important we are in the healthcare world. The other thing too, when I was in school, there wasn't like athletic training as part of the medical model. It was all athletics. So that's been an interesting thing that's been developing, that obviously it's not anything I could have been prepared for, but that's how I've always seen it. But now that there's the medical model, I really want to know more about it and figure out how someday I might be able to get that incorporated, if not here, somewhere else, if I ever move away and take another job to be closer to family. But
I always felt very confused as well in undergrad because they'd be like, oh well, if you read the practice act, you probably shouldn't do this, but you kind of can. And then you go in the practice act and you'd read it and you'd be like super duper confused, and you were like, I
yeah,
see where you're doing stuff.
and I mean, when I was in grad school, I was at Springfield College, and they were working on their practice acts, and all they were trying to do is just change wording, like pronouns, nothing crazy. And the process just to do that, it's like, oh my God, no wonder nothing ever gets done. And just how important simple words are while trying to make a bill,
Yeah.
so it can make your practice easier.
Well, I mean, California's been fighting for licensure the entire time I've been alive. I'm 26.
Hmm.
It's a pretty
Yeah.
right now to start on up again and get support.
Well, and the thing is there's been more push in the past couple of years than um, there has been in a while. But I didn't know that. Like, and I think that especially like with these ATEP programs, a lot of people aren't necessarily like from the area that go there, or you know, you go get a GA ship somewhere and it's 4 or 5 states away from where you got certified in, so you didn't even think about being licensed in that. And like going through that process, like I'll be honest, like I didn't pay as much attention to them talking about licensure during that time because I'm just like, I'm going to California, like there's no licensure stuff for me. And I'm like, and if I really need to know about it, I can just Google it, right? So
That was a big area of education that I felt I just knew nothing about nothing, because I got my undergraduate degree in Illinois and I got my master's in Illinois, and then 3 months later I was in Indiana. I was like, ooh, Indiana different than Illinois. I need to learn what I can and cannot do compared to what I already knew I could and couldn't do in Illinois.
but see, like reading practice acts and
It's difficult.
like implementing it, I feel like are like troubling in essence.
Mhm.
Like I read the practice act as I was coming to California, but then I'm like, this is such a great area because I can work under a physician, and the physician says like it's kind of like up to him or whatever and whatnot. So
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing too that I wish was more stressed is the importance of a good EAP. I just remember being in school as well, being like, "Oh, the emergency action plan. Just make sure you don't kill the person and keep them as safe as possible until the ambulance gets here to take them away." And right now, my boss has given me permission to kind of revamp ours, and just the little things I'm thinking of between all our different facilities, how we want to handle certain types of situations. And it is so much more involved. And I was just thinking to myself the other day, it's just, you could spend a solid 2 years coming up with a great emergency action plan for your institution and still be missing stuff. Like my lacrosse coach goes, because we have snowbanks on our sidelines of our field right now, we have a long path from our gym to our field. So if we ever had an early spring lacrosse game and a kid was down, sometimes that path is not plowed well enough. So it's like, how is the ambulance going to get to the field? So just little things. And like I said, because everything in 4 years is a short time to learn what we need to do. And now they're going to make it even shorter with a 5-year master's, that a lot of it we're still learning based on being thrown into the deep end of the pool.
like even to touch on that a little bit too is like it's one thing to make a fake EAP
Mm-hmm.
to a facility that you already have an EAP to. It's another thing when you're making a policy at a new place. Like I know it's a struggle for me because there's things I don't know the answers to, and I'm asking the appropriate people the questions and they don't know the answers to, and I'm like, well, I need to know this. Like, so like for example, at the school that I'm at right now, we have a volunteer fire department. So if an emergency like that happens, like our ambulance like is volunteer, so their average response time is like 2 minutes, but it doesn't mean that like that's guaranteed. I'm like, what's my backup? Like, what do I do if they say, oh, we can't, like we're already out on an emergency, like yours doesn't sound that serious, or like just like what if scenarios and being able to address those appropriately. So
I'd kill for 2 minutes. We have 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Like-
I don't think there's enough emphasis on the importance of a policy and procedure manual and emergency action plan.
Hmm.
Like, oh, make sure you have an emergency action plan, and you would be shocked by how many schools, how many secondary schools don't have an emergency action plan written, and they don't have policies and procedures for when things might go sideways. Like when I came to school in 2018, there was no written EAP and there was no written policy and procedure manual. And they had an athletic trainer here the last 15 some years. I was like, oh man, we got some work to do.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's crazy is I thought mine was, and I think a lot of students think theirs are, is that administration of athletic training is kind of a fill-in class.
Yeah.
And granted, it's not pretty stuff, but how important it is, I wish that was stressed a lot more. Because when I first started working and everyone's like, so where's this, where's that? I was like, what are you talking about? So,
Anything else we want to add to the things we wish we knew when we started?
I mean, I have plenty, but I'd be beating the dead horse. So.
One thing that I actually thought about, and it was almost like a sub category off of some of the things that the other athletic trainers have said, is like, obviously, like they talked about dealing with different personalities. My thing was dealing with entitlement. I struggle so much dealing with somebody who like thinks that the world revolves around them and that I'm sitting here eating dinner because it's my 10 minutes of free time and that I need to put down my fork and just cater to them, and how to manage that appropriately and how to like even deal with that personality, because I'm just like, ugh, I don't like you right now. Like, leave me alone. Let me eat.
And kind of going off of that, but one thing I wish with other athletic trainers is I think it's really easy for people to judge each other and just thinking like, I'm not better than any other athletic trainer out there. Because I remember when I first came out of undergrad, I thought I was the man. And I even said it on somewhere where it's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good of an athletic trainer you are. You're going to get feet shoved in your face anyways. So it's one of those, I think I wish I had received the advice where it's like, be humble. I mean, work together. And since getting back on Twitter, how many people I've reached out to that are willing to help each other that I might not have taken or asked for that help before because I thought I was on a different level than everyone else, which obviously isn't the case. So.
And that's really the whole point of having these AT talks, is that we're connecting various athletic trainers that you normally wouldn't connect with. So now if I have a question, I can be like, oh, I know Ed's experienced this. He's got lots of experience. Let me ask Ed. When before, I wouldn't have asked you. Or now, like, oh, if I'm doing something, I'm like, oh, Leah has information on this. I go talk to Leah now. But before, I wouldn't have done that. So that's really the whole point, is just trying to bring people together outside of a couple, 180 characters where you can take things the wrong way and then you're bashing each other. Everyone's upset all the time.
Yeah, and there's absolutely no need to do that.
I have to say Leah, or I'll say Leah. So I got like 6 E's in there. Sorry. All right. Anything else? Or we did everything? We're going to wrap it up and go home.
I think we're all set.
All right. Well,
I'm good.
I appreciate the two of you coming on for another video. I really enjoy talking to you too. You're fun to talk to. And we can really, we could talk for like an hour and it would fly by way faster than we would think.
How long
we
is
only have
this?
6 minutes and 59 seconds, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could just stop the recording and start a new recording. We'd have a minute to talk about whatever you want.
See, I didn't know there was a max time on these things.
Well, it's because it's a free version. If I bought premium, it wouldn't be an issue. But
you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. This is fine. Okay. Well, you guys have a great rest of Friday and have a good weekend.
You too.
Thanks, you
Thank
too.
you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.